The following preview has been rated good by the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. Please check out the full episode when it releases on Wednesday. This summer, the director who brought us Alien and likes to bitch about the younger generation, starring the man who could kind of almost sing in Les Mis and the sex shop worker from 8mm, comes a film that's historically inaccuracies can be overlooked because the movie is just that good. Join the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast as they review Gladiator. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
We did Gladiator finally, kind of rounding off that late 90s, early 2000s historical epic films.
Yes, this is, I think, probably the best balance out of the ones we've done, as far as it has history. Whether or not that history really needs to be there is arguable, because the plot works.
Yeah.
Even without the history part.
No, exactly. And just like the acting in general, like, it takes a level where it blends a lot of the CGI and practical effects in a well-working manner.
Yeah, there's only a handful of scenes that either feel a little goofy because they're shot using two urns and a pair of chicken legs, or, like, the CGI has aged a little bit. But honestly, for the most part, it still looks good. And the scenes that you care about, like the tiger fighting, the gladiator parts, like, all of that still looks surprisingly good. I was a little worried because, I mean, this movie came out in 2000.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I know we don't harp on the history a lot because I did some digging and the history is way, way off. But
oh my god, is it ever.
But that's exactly the point, is it doesn't try and pretend like it is history. Very much like how The Patriot doesn't try and pretend to be history, but The Patriot tries to blend the history more accurately.
Yes, and I do think that while there's definitely some parts that, like, we could have used either more blending or more erasing, I do think The Gladiator does a better job of just creating a story for story's sake and using this as a setting. Exactly.
And I think it also works well because the history it is using is so far removed from our modern setting that it's hard to trace back and be like, well, that's inaccurate. Well, it's like, well, we don't really know what happened back then because the gladiatorial games aren't actually documented. We know they exist because, one, the Colosseum's there, but also it's mentioned in other text and just briefly mentioned, never gone into detail. But also, Commodus, the main villain of the movie, was attempted to have been erased from history. We have a lot on him, but there's still there's theories that don't always add up, and we just don't know. Like, even the death of Marcus Aurelius is in question. We're sure he died of a disease, but we don't know what disease, or there's rumors he was killed by someone.
I mean, poison, disease, what's the difference? Back then.
Yeah.
Same rate.
Kind of.
The other thing that I think this does better than either of those is, while there's a lot of, like, one watch kind of moments in this where you watch this movie once and you've pretty much got the whole thing, this one does have a few extra, like, thoughts and bits to, like, really add on to it. So, like, we have a much better rounded villain in this movie than in some of the other ones. Like, this one, we're given reason to why he wants to be the evil little jerk that he is, and we're also given a better context of him too.
Yeah, instead of, oh, he's just a British.
The evil British murderer. Yeah, no, this, like, they explain it better in this one. And I also think that while we do get a godlike warrior, they do try just enough to bring him down to a human level that he does feel a little bit more believable. He does feel a little bit more interesting than, like, Braveheart.
Yeah. Unstoppable until he's betrayed.
Yeah, whereas this one, like, he does feel like he could be stopped with just, the right amount.
Well, and also, like, the drama that does happen and, like, the political play they have back and forth does work enough in building up to at least the final conflict, I'd say.
I agree. And I think the other thing it has going for it is there wasn't a whole lot of other Gladiator movies that came out around it, so that helped a lot.
Yeah, and also it didn't star Mel Gibson back to back, pretty much.
Yeah, that also helped. And this is the point in Russell Crowe's career where, like, having his name on the screen did draw in some fans. Granted, like, it wasn't the same extent as, like, maybe some other actors, and this is a pretty star-studded cast all around. Like, people could have found someone they enjoyed no matter what part they had.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just an overall good movie in general.
It is. I won't, however, call it exceptional.
I, on the other hand, think it's a little bit exceptional. Like,
I can understand why, but as someone who enjoys a Gladiator movie, this movie's good. There are better ones, though.
It's no Hercules and the Son of the Sun.
There's nothing like Hercules and Son of the Sun.
There's a lot like that, but they're all garbage.
Yeah, but there's also, like, this movie tried very hard to toe the line between drama, historical, and action-adventure. And while I think it did a good job of doing all those things, because it was trying to do all those things, we lost a few plot points, we had some messy threads loose, and honestly, the movie's kind of long.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
And so because of that, while it is good and I enjoyed watching it again, I didn't enjoy watching it a second time and a third time with commentary and then again with a different commentary. So there are other ones I think do each part of the sword and sandals genre better, but I do think this is a good example of trying to combine all those into one, because that is a very difficult task. This is a huge, like this genre is one of those ones that covers a lot of ground, right? Like, we've got a lot of history to go through, we've got a lot of costume to potentially go through, and we have a lot of action to try and figure out how to film. That's a lot to try and balance, and Gladiator does a pretty good job about it.
No, exactly, so. But, anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird previews.
Check out the full episode.
Peace!